Appendix 3. Notes descriptive of some Parsi ceremonies. These notes were written by the author in German merely as a memoranda of what he noticed during the performance of the ceremonies, and of such information as the priests communicated. It is to be regretted that the author confined his notes almost entirely to the ceremonies connected with the celebration of the Ijashne or Ijashne, but he probably relied upon Anquetil's description of the commoner ceremonies being a sufficient memorandum, as he found his statements quite correct on such matters. See page 25, we're in page 394. The editor's revision of these notes has been confined to such further explanation as seemed necessary for making the rough memoranda intelligible to the reader. If any Parsi priest should notice errors in these notes, he will confer a favor by pointing them out in a letter to the editor through the publishers. 1. The ceremony preparatory to Ijashne. This preparation ceremony is called Pargana or Poragna and commences with the arrangement of the various ceremonial vessels and materials in the Arvisga, or ceremonial area. This arrangement is shown upon page 395. We are in page 394. The ceremonial vessels and apparatus are made of metal, generally brass or copper, but more valuable metals can be used. They consist of several round-bottomed cups about the size of teacups, and saucer-like dishes, besides other vessels of a more special character. The fire burns on a bed of ashes in a vase-like vessel placed on a stone near the southern end of the Arvisga, or the Ratwe. Raspi, our assistant priest, is stationed facing the Zota, our chief officiating priest, who sits cross-legged on a low stone platform near the northern end of the Arvisga, but facing the fire. Both priests wear close-fitting trousers instead of the usual loose pajamas, so as to avoid touching any of the apparatus with their clothes. They also wear the penome, or mouth veil. See page 243, note 1, we're on page 394. Some spare esma, or firewood, in the form of chips of sandalwood, and bo-e, or incense, benzoin, are laid alongside the fire to the raspi's left, and the small fire tongs and an incense ladle are similarly laid to his right. The Zota has a supply of water and a large metal water vessel to his right, which also contains the pestle and strainer for the homa, and before him the remaining apparatus is arranged on a low stone platform called tak-e-alat. Besides the cups and saucers mentioned above, the following apparatus, page 396, page 394, stands on this platform. And in the south, we have the raspies section. So we have tongs, an incense ladle, fire in a vase or on a stone, and spare firewood and incense. And then we have the east quadrant and the west quadrant pointed out, and we have, after the middle of it, we have the spare homa juice in a cup with a saucer cover, the daroon and butter sauce, we have the barsom knife, and not fully to the west, we have the homa mortar. So sort of in the center, we have the knife. And then a little further back, we have the homa juice cup And then on the other side, same row as the Homa mortar, we have the Homa and pomegranate twig saucer. And then behind that, we have the Varus cup with the cover. And then we have the Zor cup and another Zor cup. And to the west of that, sort of fully west, we have a large water vessel and strainer and pestle, which can align with the last three rows. But you go further over, sort of the same row as the Darun and butter sauce. With that last row there, we have a milk saucer and a barsum laid on stands furthest to the east. And in the north of it all, sort of in the center, we have the Zota's seat. The barsum don, our stand for the barsum, consists of two separate stands with upright stems and crescent-shaped tops, hence called mahru, moon-faced. The barsum, when arranged, is laid resting on the two crescents. The karde barsum chin, our knife for cutting the barsum and so on, is laid on the takt. The havanim, our Homa mortar, is generally shaped like a wine glass with foot and stem, but much larger. And the pestle, our dasta, chisel-shaped at one end, is kept till wanted on one side in the large water vessel. The Homa strainer, our tachta ba surak, is one of the saucers with 9 small holes, arranged diamond fashion, about half an inch apart in its bottom. This also lies on one side in the water vessel. The darun, or draona, our ceremonial wafer bread, is a small, tough, flexible pancake about the size of the palm of the hand, made of wheaten flour and water, with a little melted butter, ghee, and fried. A frosast is a similar pancake marked on one side before frying, with 9 superficial cuts in 3 rows of 3 each, made with the fingernail, while repeating the words humat, hukt, varsht thrice. You know, words, thoughts, words, and deeds, right? 1 word to each of the 9 cuts. Any darun, or frosast, that is torn must not be used in any ceremony. A small piece of butter called gaush, hudao, generally accompanies the darun. Other ceremonial apparatus is sufficiently explained in the following notes. The iw ya unhanam, is the girdle or tie with which the barsum is to be tied together. Iw ya unhanem. It is prepared from a leaflet of the date palm, which is cut from the tree by the priest after he has poured consecrated water over his hand, the knife, and the leaflet. A twig is cut out in the same manner from a pomegranate bush to form the urvarum, and the barsum twigs were also similarly cut out in former times before metal wires were used. When brought to the arviska in the water goblet, the leaflet is split longitudinally into thread-like ribbons. 6 of these leafy threads are then laid together, 3 one way and 3 the other. That is, the ends belonging to the base of the leaflet are at one end of one triplet and at the other end of the other triplet, and are all tied together in a knot at one end. One triplet is then twisted tightly together with a right-handed twist. and the other triplet with a left-handed twist, so that when laid together, the two triplets twist together into a single string by partly untwisting, and they are then secured together by a knot at the other end. The A'u ya unhanam is now ready for use and is laid upon the barsom don. The varasa consists of 3, 5, or 7 hairs from the tail of a white bull, which are tied to a gold ring, or silver, copper, or brass, as large as a thumb ring. The ring has a gap in its circumference, as the metal wire of which it is formed does not quite meet. This varasa, when once prepared, can be used as long as the bull lives, whose hair has been taken. But as often as it is used, it must be consecrated by the recital of the 1001 names of God, that is, by 10 repetitions of the 101 names, which are all that are known now. Well, it could be like some of the things in India where there actually was a list. That big. The Zaotra, or Zor, is water, consecrated in the following manner. The priest takes 2 metal cups in his hands and recites Hashem Bohu thrice, Farane Ijashne 3:24 to Frasas Teya Etcha Ilyo van Uhibyo is in Frag 7:1, page 333, Westergaards, to Frasas Teya Etcha and Yapa Ahuva Irio, Ijashne 3:25, omitting Westergaard's second line. Then, reciting the words, Frate sta a idde, he fills both cups with water and continues reciting Yata Ahu Va'irio twice. Yasnemcha, Vahmemcha, Ujascha, Zavaretcha, Afriname, Yasht 123, and Aibyo van Uhibyo as before, to Tava Ahurahe. These last 3 words must be recited twice, once aloud and once muttered as a baj. The water is now Zor, and the cups are placed on the tucked, one over the other, with a saucer between them. The barsom consists of a number of slender rods, or ta'i, formerly twigs of some particular trees, but now thin metal wires are generally used. The number of these ta'i depends upon the nature of the ceremony to be celebrated. For Ijashne, Yazishan, alone, 21 ta'i are required. For Ijashne, with the Vendadad and Visparad, 33 ta'i for Yasht Rapithwin, 13 ta'i for Darun Baj, 5 ta'i or 7 when a priest becomes a herbad. According to either other information, the Darun Baj requires 7 ta'i of double thickness, or 9 if performed in the house of a king or a chief high priest. In the Narangastan, it is stated that the barsom twigs may be cut from any tree whose trunk is sound, and that they should be from 1 to 3 spans in length, and a barley corn in thickness, and their number either 3, 5, 7, 9, 12, 15, 21, 33, 69, or 551, according to the circumstances of the ceremony. 551, that's a why 551. Besides these ta'i, which form the actual barsom, the other ta'i are required. 1 to lie across the saucer, which contains the milk, or ga'ush, jivya, and the other to lie on the projecting feet of the two mahru, which forms the barsom dan. The first of these ta'i is called the jivam. The other, the fragam. At first, the fragam is laid at one end of the bundle of the ta'i, forming the barsom, so that it projects beyond the rest, as the priest takes the bundle in his left hand and the jivam in his right. The a'ilya unhem being laid upon the two mahru. The priest then recites Hashem Bohu thrice, Fravarane, Ijashne 3.24, to Frasestiya Echa, Kshathra He, and so on, from the Siros 1.4. Shna Othra, Yasna Itcha, Vahma Itcha, Shna Othra Itcha, Frasestiya Etcha, Yatha Ahuva Irio, Ijashne 3.25, omitting Westergaard's second line to henceforth Yatha Ahu Va'irio will be contracted into YAV and Hashem Bohu into AV. In all cases, the whole formula is to be understood when it is not otherwise stated. Ijashne 3.25, omitting Westergaard's second line to Mra'otu Hashem Bohu Yatha Ahu Va'irio twice. Yasnemcha, Yasht 123 to Afriname, Kshatrahe, and so on. Siros Yasht 1.4. Hashem Bohu thrice, and Favarane, Ijashne 3.24 to Frasasteya Etcha, and then we're reciting the words Ahorahe Mazdao Ra'evato Karen Anhato. The priest proceeds to tie the barsom together with the A'il Ya'un Hanem in the following manner: the jivam being held in his right hand and the fragam projecting from the barsom held in his left hand. He prepares to pass the A'il Ya'un Hanem thrice around the middle of the barsom and to tie it with knots. In the same way, the kusti, or sacred thread girdle, is secured round the waist of the Parsi man or woman. This is done as follows: in the middle of the string, being taken in the hands and applied to the waist outside, the sadara, or muslin shirt, in front, and the ends passed around the waist by the hands, meeting behind, changing ends there and bringing them round again to the front, so that the string has then twice encircled the waist. The long hanging ends are then tied loosely together in front, first with the right-handed knot and then with the left-handed knot, and the long loose ends are finally passed backwards the third time round the waist and tied again behind with a similar double knot. And two Hashem Bohu, twice. Did I say the note? Whenever the Hashem Bohu, it is used, it indicates that the first word, Hashem, of the formula is spoken twice. Oh, well, I thought that went without saying, but first, the above formulas from Shna Othra to Mra'otu must again be recited, and then Hashem Bohu thrice, formally 4 times. Each time, the words Hashem Bohu are uttered. The barsom must be dipped in water and again taken out. This water, which is not zor, and will be used in the Homa ceremony, which is called Apim Yam. The barsom is now tied together with 2 double knots in the Iw Ya Unhem, one above and the other below, while reciting Yatha Ahu Ba'eryo twice, and the two projecting ends are cut to an equal length with the knife, each time reciting Yatha Ahu Ba'eryo, and a single knot is tied in each hand. After these two Yatha Ahu Ba'eryo must follow Yasnemcha, and so on as before. The priest then says Ahorahe Mazda'o Ra'evato aloud, and then lays the properly arranged barsom on the two mahru, while muttering the same words as Baj on the two. After the barsom is thus laid on the barsom don, he takes out the fragam and lays it upon the projecting feet of the two mahru. The homa twigs must next be purified. These twigs are brought from Iran by traders, and are therefore considered impure till they have been purified, laid aside for a year, and again purified. The purification is accomplished by water and formulas. The priest takes the homa twig, when is sufficient, in his right hand, holding a copper goblet of water in his left, from which he pours water at intervals over the twig. As he thrice recites Kshna Othra, Ahrahe, Mazda'o, and so on, and the Ashembohu. He then takes the Jivam in his left hand and recites Ashembohu thrice. Favarana, yes, the 324 to Frasas Teyaetcha. Ha'omahe Asha Vazanho, yes, na 10.1, but only these two words. Kshna Othra, and so on, as in page 398 or in page 399, lines 8 to 10 above 2, Manaotu, and Ashembohu thrice, each time dipping the Jivam and Homa, which he holds in each hand, into the water. Then follow Yatha Ahu Ba'eryo twice, Yasnemcha, Yasht 123 to Afriname, and Ha'omahe Asha Vazanho. These last two words must be first spoken aloud and then repeated in a low voice as a baj. The homa twig is now laid in its place in a metal saucer on the tukt. The priest takes 3 small pieces of the homa and 1 of the urvaram, the hada na epatam, or pomegranate twig, and lays them on the havanim, or homa mortar, which is placed upside down upon the tukt. When the varasa is to be laid in its place in a cup on the tukt after being consecrated, it must be held below between the fingers. The homa juice is now to be prepared. The priest takes the varasa and jivam, some call this the zor ta'i, in his hands and recites Ashem Bahu thrice. Frava Rane to Frasas Teyaetcha and Zarathustrahe Spitamahe to Braotu. And then he dips the varasa into a cup full of water, utters the word Hashem twice, once aloud and once in a low voice, as a baj, and then lays the varasa in its proper place. The jivam is called the zortai. The priest then recites Yasna 24, 1 to 9, as far as the words Mananho Shukyante, but he must omit the clause containing the words Gam Jivyam in verse 1 and 6, because the milk is not yet in its place on the tukt. He must then recite Yaoscha, Ete, Yasna 4 to 8 to Ramano, Kastrahe, and next invoke the angels of the day and the month in which the ceremony is being celebrated. For instance, if the ceremony is to be performed on the day of Spendermod in the month of Ardebahisht, he must recite Spentayao Van Huyao Armatoish Y V K H F Aad Dish Av Edha Yamahe, and then Ashahe Vahishtahe Sra Eshtahe Y V K H F Aad Dish Ava Edayamahe. What's that last word? Ava Edayamahe. Okay. Yeah, it'd be better not to abbreviate that, but at least he's not saying refer to, you know, a few pages back or 10 pages back or something. Then follow Tava, Athro, Ijashne 4, 17 to 22 to Ad, Dish, Ava Edayamahe, Zarathustrahe, Ijashne 4, 23 to Ad, D, long A, Asha Onam, Ijashne 4, 24 to Ad, D, long A, Bispa Ebyo, Van Hu Dabyo, Ijashne 4, 25 to Vahishtad, and Ijashne 25, 1 to 3, omitting the clause containing the words Gam, Jivyam, as in verse 1 as before, or reciting the words Amesha Spenta, Ijashne 25, 1. The priest knocks the Havanim thrice upon the tacht at the words Emem, Ha'omem, Ashaya, Uzdatem, Yazama'edeh. He puts the pieces of the Homa twig into the Havanim, and the words Imancha, Urvaram, Havana'e Patam. He puts in the small pieces of the small piece of the Urvaram, the Dirakte Anar, or pomegranate twig. He pours a little of the consecrated water from the upper Zor cup into the Havanim, while uttering the words Ibyo, Van Uhibyo, Apemcha, Ha'umyam Yaz. After Ijashne 25:3, there follows Zarathustrahe to the Varasa. Skipped a line. Ijashne 26:5 to Yaz, on the recitation of which the priest bows to the Varasa. He then takes the strainer out of the cup in the large vessel to his right and places it upon a cup, the Homa juice cup, before him while reciting the Eristanam Urvano, Ijashne 26:11 to Fravashyo, followed by Yenhe, Hatam, and so on to Ta'oscha Yaz. When the Nirangdin Gomez or Varasa is to be prepared, each of which requires a formal Ijashne with Homa, a small piece of sandalwood, and incense lying near the fire is now thrown into it. This is not done, however, in the ordinary Ijashne. Then, while reciting Atha Ratush Ashad Chid Hacha Fra Ashava Vidvao Mra'otu, he takes the pestle out of the water, holding it so as to touch with the lower part of its side the northeastern part of the rim of the large water vessel and passes it all around in contact with the rim, north, west, south, east. At the same point again, with the pestle in his hand, he recites Itad, Ijashne 27:1 to Dazd Ya'e, Ahumcha. He knocks the lower end of the pestle on the takt, Ratumcha. He knocks its upper end on the takt, Yim Ahurim Mazdam. He bows to the fire. Let me remind that the fire is not actually treated as God, it's just a prayer direction. Continuing the recitation of Ijashne 27:1, the devas are beaten by striking sonorous blows with the pestle on the outside of the mortar in the following manner. With the blow on the eastern side, he recites Snatha'e Anrahe Ma'ingeush Drvato. With the blow on the southern side, he recites Snatha'e Eshmahe Kurvi Draosh. With the blow on the western side, he recites Snatha'e Maza in Yanam Da Evanam. With the blow on the northern side, he recites Snatha'e Vispanam Da Evanam. With 3 more blows on the northern side, he recites Da Evanam Varen Yan Amcha Drvatam. The priest then recites in a low voice, as in the Baj, the Pazan formula, Shikasta, Gana Ma'inyo, and so on. Some mobids repeat the formulas for beating Engro Ma'inyush and the devas without striking blows upon the mortar, but they strike them while reciting the formula, Fredata'e, and so on, as in Ijashne 27:2. And Fredata'e Ahurahe, Ijashne 27:2 to Acha Onam aloud, and then begins to pound the Homa and Urvaram in the mortar while reciting Yata Ahu Va'iryo 4 times. During the first 3, he pounds with the pestle on the bottom of the mortar, but during the 4th, he strikes it against the side so as to produce a ringing sound. He continues the same practice during 4 recitations of Mazda Ad Mo'e, Ijashne 34:15 to Ahum, and 4 recitations of A'ir Yama Ishyo, Ijashne 54:1 to Mazda'o, pounding on the bottom during the first 3 and against the sides with a ringing sound during the 4th. He next takes the upper Zor cup in his hand, recites Ashembohu thrice, and pours a little Zor into the mortar cup. Each time he utters the word Hashem. Then he recites Ha'oma Ha'ere Harash Yante, Ijashne 27:6-7 to the Cham in 11 portions. During the recital of each portion, he passes the pestle once around, north, west, south, east, into contact with the inside of the mortar rim. He then takes the fragments of Homa and Urvaram out of the mortar, and then holding the fragments of Homa and Urvaram out of the mortar, and holding them between his fingers and thumb, he touches with them the barsom at the word Atha, Ijashne 27:7, the saucer for the milk at the words Z, Na, the Homa cup at the word Humayo, the Arvisga at the word Tara, and throws them back into the mortar at the word Anhem. He next takes the upper Zor cup in his left hand and continues to pound the Homa with his right hand while reciting 4 Yata Ahu Ba'erio in the following manner. During the first Yata Ahu Ba'erio, at the word Atha, he pours a little Zor into the mortar with his left hand and continues to pound with his right. At the word Yim, he passes the pestle once around as before in contact with the inside of the mortar rim. And at the last word, Vastarem, he pours the whole contents of the mortar, Homa, Urvaram, and water into the strainer, whence all the liquid portion of the contents runs through into the Homa juice cup below it. See page 400, line 30. We are on page 402. The solid portion remaining in the strainer is then thrown back into the mortar, and the pounding is resumed while the second Yata Ahu Va'erio is recited to the word Ashad. When more Zor is poured into the mortar after proceedings are similar to those connected with the first Yata Ahu Va'erio. A similar routine is adopted in connection with the third and fourth Yata Ahu Va'erio. The Zor being poured into the mortar at the word Hacha in the third, and at the word Dazda in the fourth. By means of these 4 successive dilutions, poundings, and strainings, all the properties of the Homa juice are supposed to be extracted. The solid remains of the twigs, out of which the liquid has been well squeezed by the fingers in the strainer, are laid aside to dry thoroughly. When thoroughly dry, they are put into the fire at the time of Atash Nyayesh, and the pestle is washed and returned to its place. The priest then takes the strainer off the Homa juice cup while reciting Ye Savishto, Ijashne 33:11 to Pa'eti thrice, and the final repetition, the last words Ada'e Kahya Echid Pa'eti, must be recited thrice. The strainer is now washed and laid upon the mortar. The varasa is put into the strainer so that the knots and the hairs are upwards, and the priest recites Us Mo'i Uza Reshva, Ijashne 33:12 to 14, to Shapremcha, followed by Ashembohu twice, once aloud and once in a low voice as a bodge. He then pours all the Zor which remains in the upper Zor cup into the strainer, through which it runs into the mortar, and the upper Zor cup is then placed near the lower one instead of over it as heretofore. He next takes the strainer containing the varasa in his right hand and the Homa juice cup in his left, and proceeds to recite Humata, Hukta, Havarshta in a low voice as a bodge. When he mutters the word Humata, he pours a few drops of the Homa juice through the strainer onto the Arviska. When he mutters the word Hukta, he pours a few drops in a similar manner into the upper Zor cup, which has just been emptied. When he mutters the word Havarshta, he pours a few drops in a similar manner into the mortar, and he does this thrice. The Homa juice cup is now put in its proper place. The strainer containing the varasa is placed upon it. All the liquid in the mortar is poured into the strainer, through which it flows into the Homa juice cup, and the mortar is put into its proper place. The Gaush Jivya, or milk saucer, is also put into its proper place near the 2 Mahru. The priest then takes the varasa in his left hand and recites Yata Ahu Va'erio twice, Hasnemcha, Ijashne 123, 2 Afriname, and Zarathustrahe, Spitamahe, Asha Ono, Fravashe twice, once aloud and once in a low voice. He then dips the Varasa into the Zor and puts it into its proper place. The strainer is also put back into the large water vessel, and the Jivam is laid upon the milk saucer. The priest must now leave the Arviska and go outside reciting Eshem Lahu once. Ahma'e Ra'escha Yash 133. Hazanrem Jasameh and Kerfe Mosta, which is from the Pazand. He must then perform the Kusti ceremony, and the preparatory ceremonial is complete. If any incense happens to be at hand, it may now be thrown into the fire when the laying upon the milk saucer. So before the priest leaves and recites.